Hello everyone, this is GamesWithFrank and welcome back to the C# for Unity users tutorial series, and in this particular tutorial we'll be covering a basic script which allows us to click on this cube and it should basically switch from green to red, and if it is red then it should switch back to green and it should loop in that way. So let me just quickly create the C# script. And I'm going to call it click to change color, something like that. And once we open up, you can see that there are a few components that we'll need to look at. And the name of the script, as you can observe, is the class here. And there are a few methods already created for us when we create a script. And those are the start and update method. And for this particular tutorial, we won't be needing these two. So we'll get into what these do a little bit later. So basically, start state would be triggered when the script is enabled, and update is called every frame, as it is written here in the comment. And you can make a comment using 2 slashes. So if I enter 2 slashes and see, this is a comment. This is just for notes and this won't be considered in the code itself. So this is not considered as syntax, and you can create multiple lines of comments, etc. So that's basically about comments. And we won't be needing these two methods here. I'm gonna delete them. And for this script, we'll be using these two materials that we've created. And we'll be accessing them through 2 different variables that we create inside the script. So I'm gonna quickly create the variables here. This is how you create a variable. You mention the type of variable. So right now we want a material as a variable. So I'm gonna type in material. And I want to name this variable red material. And you can see that it shows an error and it says semicolon expected. And that's because every line in C# needs to end with a semicolon. How we end a sentence with a period, it should have a semicolon in the script. So we've literally created our first variable, and we'll go ahead and create the other variable as well. And I'm going to call it green material. And if I save this and go back to Unity, and if I select the cube and quickly assign the script to the cube, you can see that nothing happens. Nothing shows up. There's no sign of any material variables here. And that's because we are not exposing them. So if I add a simple line called serialize field above the red material variable and the green material variable, and if I hit save, now we should be able to see that there are 2 variables here and I can assign them. So I'll just quickly assign them. I'll click and drag the green material into the green material slot and red material into the red material slot. There we have it. So right now it doesn't do anything. We just created variables and we did not give any instructions as to what the script should be doing. And that's because we don't have any methods defined. And if you remember, I called the start and update chunks of code as methods. And there is another method that we frequently use in Playmaker, which is called get key down. And similar to that, you can look for mouse down, and you can see that it gives a small description here. On mouse down is called when the user has pressed the mouse button while over the collider or the GUI element. It's as simple as that. So this is what we need. I'll just double click on that one, and it adds this particular method, and you can see that it creates this area inside the curly braces, and this is where we'll carry out our code. So if I say debug.log, mouse is clicked, and I'll end it with a semicolon. And if I save it and hit play, you should be able to go to the console, and if I click on the cube in the game view, you can see that there is a message that says mouse is clicked, which is exactly the message we wrote. And if I click on it multiple times, you can see that the number increases on the right side. So this is working fine. So we don't want a message to appear. Instead of this, we need to set the material of the cube, and we can do that by typing in this .gameObject. And to explain this further, if you remember something called getOwner inside Playmaker, this is doing the same exact thing. So if I type in this .gameObject, it is accessing this particular game object, which is the cube. And if I attach this script to the camera, it will access the camera, and that becomes the game object. So right now we want to access the mesh renderer component here. So it should be this game object and then mesh renderer. And mesh renderer happens to be a component, and everything else is a component as well. So we can access components by using get component. And for this, it's a little bit weird syntax, which you'll get used to. So it's like less than, greater than symbol. But in the between, we need to mention which component we're accessing. So if I type in click to change color, that is literally accessing this same exact script within the same game object. So we don't want that. We want to use the mesh renderer. And inside the mesh renderer, you can see that materials is a list, and we want to access this list. And if I open and close brackets, this is how we access the mesh renderer component. And if I hit period and type in material, this is going to give me the material that this particular game object has. And I want to set it to the red material for now. And I'll end the line with the semicolon, and I'll delete this comment. So I'll just quickly save and hit play. And now what exactly should happen is when I click on the cube, it should change it to the red material. And it's working perfectly. But if I click on it again, it won't do anything because it's setting the material back to red again and again. But we can't see that. So I'll just quickly come out to the play mode. And here we're going to write our first if statement. And that's basically like checking a boolean inside Playmaker. Let's say if a particular condition is true, then do this. In the same way, here in C#, if I make room, if I type if and open brackets, and this is going to be the condition. And after the condition, we're going to open curly braces, and inside this, we're going to enter whatever the action should do. So the format of an if condition goes like this. So there is a condition that we need. And in our case, that is to check whether the current material is red or green. So I'll just quickly copy this entire line and paste it instead of the condition. And if I press another dot, I can access the name of the material, and I'll use another dot and say contains. And what this method does is checks whether this particular name of the material has a particular word. And so if I open and close brackets and type in green inside it, it is checking whether this game object has a material which has the string green inside it. And if it does, then it should do exactly this, which is to set it to red. And I'll just quickly save it. Now this should work exactly the same way it was working before, which is basically if I click on the cube, it turns to red. But this is a different approach because right now we are accessing the name of the material. So if I go to project window and click and drag the green material into the slot, and if I click on it again, it should change back. And that's happening because it's checking the material name and it is recognizing that it's a green material. So now that we have the first part of our script, I can go ahead and write out the other condition as well. And I can do that by creating an else statement. And an else statement is happening after an if statement. So it's checking if this condition is true, then do this. And else is basically like otherwise do this particular thing. That's between these two curly braces. So I'm going to copy this and paste it here. And I'm going to change this to green material and save it. Let's just run. So now it should work both ways. If I click on it, it should change to red, which it did. And if I click on it again, it should change back to green. And now we have a perfect click to change material script that is perfectly working. Congratulations on your first C# script, and this is just the beginning of what we can do with C#. If you have any feedback or if you have trouble understanding the explanation, let me know in the comments. I'll try to use other ways to explain it in the upcoming tutorials. And this was the lesson 1 from Putong Games' core concepts video, and we'll be continuing with the next one in the next tutorial. So that's all from my side. If you've learned something in this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I'll see you in the next video. This is GamesWithFrank signing out.